So I'm going to give another example of the quality of reasoning and the ethical fortitude and commitment of the effective altruist and rational movements, which is to say they're basically just a giant sham full of people who want to brand themselves as superior and claim that that gives them dictatorial power. And they don't want to learn when they're wrong. They don't want to find better solutions from outsiders. They don't really care about results. And you can see that in their track record. They've been around for over a decade, and the entire effective altruist movement hasn't come up with ideas on their own that are better than what I do by myself for free. I make my work open source, and my results are bigger than theirs. So I'm technically more effective and more altruistic than them. So I'm going to go into one of the examples. This would be a cute example if it weren't so serious. There's about 250 million people on Earth who suffer from malaria every year. It's like 6% of the global population. And there's tens of thousands of people every year dying from malaria. And so that's a big issue. And so the effective altruists claim that their best, most effective way to address that problem is to bring rich people on fancy retreats where they all hang out at some expensive lodge or at some expensive conference. And then they get some of the rich person's money and then they just spend it on bed nets. That's their crowning glory, is bed nets. And there's a problem with bed nets to stop mosquitoes from transmitting malaria. First of all, when you're under a bed net, the mosquitoes all still want to get you. So they're swarming right outside your bed net. They smell you, they come close, they stop at the net. But what if you have to get up to pee? You're going to get swarmed by mosquitoes because they're all waiting right there. They're still there. And the bed net's only going to protect you when you're in bed. What about at sunset when you're not in bed yet? And they have to buy these bed nets for people and then hand them out. And a lot of the people are poor. They're saying, well, I'd rather use this net for other things. Or you didn't explain to me how to use this properly and mosquitoes still get in. There isn't a strong incentive for locals to adopt because they don't actually invest the time and energy in finding a solution with positive incentives that's self-sustaining. You have to keep getting billionaire money at a fancy retreat or conference and then handing it out again. So they're handing out a lot of money to get bed nets. And when I came to the EA meeting, I've gone to many EA meetings, weeks and weeks and weeks for months. I came to an EA meeting and I said, hey, there's a better option. I invented it. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear a better option. So most of the response I got is, no, I don't want to hear it. When I was able to talk to EA members about this better option, they were immediately dismissive without having full information. They didn't know what I was talking about, but they wanted to shoot it down from a place of ignorance. So let's look at this option. It starts with a concept. The mosquito smells you and flies toward you. And the way it smells you is with carbon dioxide from your breath. So animals exude carbon dioxide. The mosquito smells it, comes toward the animal, bites them. You want a solution where the person who is doing this solution is self-financing. They're making more money than it costs in terms of material and labor. You want it to be self-financing so it can grow organically. People will just naturally adopt it. And they'll be able to keep expanding its use without relying on a billionaire who went to a conference, without relying on more handouts year after year after year after year. And you want it to be something that people value, and you want it to be a complete solution where you're not just putting mosquitoes outside their bed on a net. You want to actually get rid of those mosquitoes. And I'll mention an aside, people might complain about mosquitoes being an important part of the ecology. No, bugs are an important part. Insects and arachnids and all those other little critters, they are important to the ecology. But that doesn't mean you have to have so many mosquitoes. Mosquitoes mostly are eating other bugs in a pond that's fed at water when they're in their larval stage. They're these little vicious face huggers in the pond. And they are vicious hunters, hunting all these other species of critter in the pond. And then when they become adults, the females are looking for blood to lay their eggs. So if you get rid of mosquitoes in an area, those ponds will have a new predator replace them. It's going to be more dragonflies and beetles. And I'd much rather have dragonflies and fireflies instead of mosquitoes. You don't destroy the ecology that way. Okay? So we can and should move the mosquito population away from populated human settlements, because that's going to protect people from malaria. And again, it's 250 million a year who are suffering from it. And it's like 60,000 people a year who die. So it's a pretty big issue. So the way to do this is you make a little shed and you put a tarp inside the shed so it doesn't release gases. And inside this shed, you're going to put 2 carboys, two jugs, and you're going to brew beer in those jugs. You have a burping valve on a beer keg, where as the yeast ferments the sugars inside the grain mash, it produces carbon dioxide, and it burps out of the valve. And carbon dioxide is what mosquitoes follow to find a victim. And this shed is airtight because of the tarp, except for a hole at the top where you put a funnel. Put a funnel in the lid. And now the carbon dioxide, being heavier than air, is going to fall and push the air out of the box. And eventually, the box is full of carbon dioxide. This is not going to cause global warming. This is less carbon dioxide than you burn with a liter of gasoline. But you've now produced this canister full of carbon dioxide with no air inside. And when it's filled with carbon dioxide, that's when the CO2 is going to start to leak out the top of the funnel. And mosquitoes smell it. And they fly toward that funnel and down into it. You need to make the funnel wide enough for a mosquito to go in. Once the mosquito flies down into that, there's no air. It's only carbon dioxide. And they suffocate. So when you open the lid a few weeks later, you're going to have finished beer, which is a valuable economic product that self-funds the operation. So you can keep doing it without waiting for a billionaire to give you money. And you have a pile of dead mosquitoes, which you feed to chickens because it's high nutrient content, trace minerals. It's good stuff. And you've just eliminated the mosquito population from that zone. So if you have a settlement and you surround it with mosquito beer traps, then everyone in the settlement is now protected from mosquitoes. And I also recommend that you do this at the lake house. It's a good thing to have at the lake house. Just telling you a little plus for your fishing trip. But it would be minimal cost to train a small group of people in each region who then use the profits from that operation to build out more themselves. Instead of asking everyone in that region to learn, you find the people who are willing and able to learn, and then they operate the mosquito beer traps. And that's what Nassim Taleb calls skin in the game. It's an incentive structure, it's self-funding, and it would radically reduce the incidence of malaria and death. EA didn't want it, which proves that they're not effective.